Praise the Lord. Once again, it's a joy to share the Word of God with all of you. Today, I want to continue talking about love, the more excellent way. John chapter 13, verse 35, Jesus says, "By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Jesus says these words even as he is spending his last days with his disciples, and he shares his greatest wish with all his disciples, saying that you love each other. And that is the mark of my disciple. May love be the logo, the sign of my disciples. Now in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we can see that Paul brings a beautiful, the most profound poem about love. And it is so profound that if we could practice that love, the nature of love that is described in that chapter, if we could practice that in our life would become really beautiful, because the poem describes about love and then it says love never fails. If we could practice love, we could come to that conclusion that the things in our life, the situations in our life, no matter how worse it may become, but ultimately we would emerge victorious. So in this section, I want to bring forward some questions based on 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And these questions are basically to evaluate our own self. How much are we practicing love? How much are we driven by love? How much are we giving importance to love, the greatest commandment, the new commandment that Jesus gave? So let's begin right away. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1 to 3 is a continuation of what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verses 31. He begins by saying that love is a more excellent way. He says that desire gifts, but I want to tell you the more excellent way, the way of love. And then in the next chapter 13, in the first three verses, he describes about this excellent way, the excellence of love. So I want to bring forward my first question to analyze our own self. Is love for you more excellent than speaking in tongues? Do you seek love as more excellent than speaking in tongues? Because Paul in this word says, even if you speak in the words of angels, the language of angels, and if you do not have love, you signify nothing. You are just as a brass that makes sounds, as a cymbal that simply clangs. So let's analyze our own self. What is the most important thing that we give importance? In the ancient days and even in our days, in the temples, people go ringing the bells. So sometimes, when we practice the spiritual gifts, are we thinking that, we are in some way trying to please God even without practicing the greatest commandment of love? The next question I want to base on verse 2. Is love more excellent for you than the gift of prophecy? than the gift of knowledge and understanding of the Bible? Is love more excellent for you than the gift of faith, a faith that moves mountains? Now, many of us think that if we could have the gifts of prophecy, if we could have uh, all the knowledge of the Bible, all the understanding, the mysteries of the Bible, some of us sometimes think that if I could exercise faith, bringing miracles, that would be so wonderful. But Paul says, more excellent way is the way of love. Without love, if you don't practice love, and if you have all this knowledge, all these prophetical gifts, if you are able to exercise all this great faith, but if you don't have love, you are nothing. That's what Paul says. You are nothing. The third question is based on verse 3. Is love more excellent for you than generosity and giving of gifts to poor? Sometimes we give more importance to giving of gifts to poor, giving of gifts to the church, giving of tithes. But do you see that love is more excellent than all these generosities? The next question is based on the same verse. Is love more excellent for you than making any kind of self-sacrifice and self-denials? Do you seek love as a more excellent way than making some kinds of self-sacrifices and self-denials? Sometimes we think that if we deny our own self, if we go into the way of suffering, if we deny all kind of comforts, and we live a very life of humility and self-denial, and we go into the extremes of all kind of a life that is totally self-denying, we think that it is a very holy life pleasing to God. But Paul says it clearly, love is more excellent. If you do not have love, and if you practice a life of self-denial, and you deny yourself all kind of comforts, and you live a very simple life, but if you do not practice love, then it says that it profits you nothing. The next questions are based on verses 4 to 7. Now, in verses 4 to 7, Paul lists a few characteristics about love, the attributes and the qualities of love, the qualities by which you can say that, okay, this is love, the undeniable characteristics of love. So I want to base my next questions based on verse 4 to 7. All right, so here goes my fifth question. Do you have patience with imperfect people? Now, we are always surrounded with imperfect people, people who do not think as you think, people who do not come to the same standard as you are, people who have different understanding, people who have different standards of life, people who think differently. The best example is the example of Jesus. Jesus was surrounded with all his disciples, all of them had different personalities, all of them had different levels of faith, all of them were almost imperfect people. But look at the way Jesus lived with them, how Jesus put up with them, how much patient was Jesus with each and every one of them. That's the best example for us. In fact, this poem in chapter 13 of Corinthians, First Corinthians, if you put Jesus instead of the word love, you can see that all these qualities, all these characters of love matches exactly with the life of Jesus. So Jesus is a supreme example for us. So in these words of love, the best example for us is the life of Jesus. If you could set the life of Jesus as a supreme standard for us, as the benchmark for us, it would be really wonderful. So we have the example of Jesus to follow. And so, it's Jesus had patience with all the imperfect people. Romans chapter 4 verses 1, it says, receive the weak. In your church or in your family, there are some people whose faith is weak. They may not be having the same level of understanding as you have. You may be a person who does not believe in taking medicines, but the other person might not be as strong as you. Do you judge him or her, or do you accept him? You might be a person, having a different understanding about holiness, but your friend might be a little imperfect. Do you accept him or do you judge him? So that is about this question. Sixth question. Do you show kindness by doing good to others? Do you seek to do good works to others? Do you seek for opportunities to help others? Help your friends? Jesus always sought for opportunities to do good. Wherever he saw opportunities, he did good. Acts, the book of Acts says that Jesus went around doing good. That was his testimony. What about us? All right, the seventh question. Do you feel jealous when others move ahead? Now, this is a very critical question for all of us. We love people as long as they are subject to us, as long as they behave as we want. But the moment somebody, some of your friends, some of your close associates move ahead in your life, there is jealousy, there is envy developing in your heart. So we need to analyze. Are you jealous when your friends go ahead, when they move ahead? The best example I can draw out is from the Old Testament, the example of Jonathan. When David was succeeding and he was being praised by all his people, and Jonathan knew exactly that David had all the caliber and he had all the ability to be the next king, and he knew it in his heart that David would be on his father's throne, on Saul's throne. So he knew that David would take his own place. But even after knowing all these things, you look at those beautiful words, Jonathan's heart. It says that Jonathan loved David and he supported him. He gave him his sword, he gave him his royal robe. And in another place, Saul was so angry with Jonathan because Jonathan, according to Saul, was acting foolishly. But that's the best example of how we can encourage others, how we can support others, how we can move in friendship with others and totally avoid all kind of jealousy and envy. So love is not envious, it is not jealous. The eighth question. Do you like to show your own selves? Do you like your own fame? Now, Jesus never did anything for fame. In John chapter 7, the brothers of Jesus come to Jesus and say, "Hey, Jesus, you're not going to the festival? The people who want to become famous, they always go to such kind of places." But Jesus says, "My hour has not yet come." So, Jesus never did anything for fame. Whenever he did some miracles, he slipped out from among the people. He never wanted people to publicize about him, and that is the greatest mark. What is our desire? Is our desire to become famous and become big, become great? It's very much part of our lives, but when love fills our life, when the love of God fills our life, we can overcome all these fleshly natures. Ninth question: do you take pride in anything? For example, your personality, your looks, your knowledge, your skills, or any other things? Is there anything which is making you a person filled with pride? Paul said, "I boast only in the cross." And in Philippians chapter 3, he says, "I count all these things as rubbish when I compare with the knowledge of Jesus Christ." Love is never puffed up. The 10th question: do you hurt others by your words, by your actions, or by your behavior? Are we gracious, thankful as we deal with others, or are we filled with grudging spirit? Do we kill others with our words and actions? Love does not behave rudely. 11th question: are you selfish? If you're a person having selfish desires, you're not a person driven by love, because love never seeks its own. Do you put your own interest first? Is yourself the most important thing for you in your life, in your decisions? Love never seeks its own. The 12th question: do you get irritated when things go wrong? When things don't go according to your plans, do you get provoked? Do you get provoked by some actions and some words of other people? Love is not provoked. 13th question: do you think evil about something or some people? Do you keep a record of the wrongs done to you? Love does not keep a record of all the evils. It forgets, it forgives, and moves on. Do you keep a record of all the evil done to you? Some people, they keep a record and they are never ready to forgive and forget. But that's a godly nature. To err is humane, but to forgive is divine. That's the old proverb. And it's very important that we forgive and forget and not keep a record. It's very important for us to remember these things if we have to love somebody purely and genuinely. The 14th question: do you rejoice in iniquity or do you rejoice in truth? Do you feel okay to accommodate your own or others' sin? If you think by doing a small adjustment or paying a small bribe, It doesn't matter to you, but it matters to God. So if you are a person driven by love, you will hate all kind of evil things. You will hate all kind of iniquities, but you will always rejoice in truth. You will always love to walk by truth. Even if you have a desire to help your friend, you will always move in truth. You will never make any adjustments with even the slightest iniquities, because that is not the way of love. You may think that small adjustments, you can help your friend, but love always rejoices in truth and truth alone. It can never rejoice in a lie and deceitfulness and any kind of iniquity. 15th question. Do you suffer all things for your friends? Do you bear all things? Do you suffer all things for your brothers and sisters? Are you ready to go an extra mile for your friend? Are you ready to pay a price in helping your friend? Are you ready to suffer any harm that comes to you in the way of expressing your love to your friend, your brother? Are you ready to suffer any kind of wrong, any kind of hurt, even as you love your brothers and sisters? The 16th question. Do you trust your brothers and sisters in all things? Are you suspicious, critical of others, interpreting the actions of others? And it says, love believes all things. Now, this is the greatest problem that happens even as we try to be friendly with others. The actions of others, sometimes the behavior, the words and the actions of other people is not accepting to us, and so we are very critical about others. We dissect their words. We are not ready to trust their words. Maybe in the past they might not have been as trustworthy, so the tendency is that you always analyze their words. You're not ready to trust them. That is why this is very important. Love believes all things. It does not say here that you have to believe all kind of lie and all kind of things. No. It simply says when you are committed to love somebody, you believe that person. That person might not have been trustworthy in the past. His words and his actions might not be accepting to you, but still you commit yourself to believe in that person. You believe all things. Love motivates you to believe all things, even if the past may not be exactly as you thought it would be. So love believes all things. It is not critical of others. It is not suspicious of others. It is not interpreting their actions and behavior and dissecting them, but it believes. The 17th question. Do you always hope for the best in others? Do you always hope the best out of all situations? It says, love hopes all things. Jesus was always hopeful about his disciples. They failed repeatedly. They failed to love. They repeatedly showed their own fleshly characters. They, even at the end, they rejected and they abandoned Jesus. But look at the character of Jesus. Jesus was hopeful about the disciples till the end. He hoped the best. That is a supreme character of love. Do you hope the best for your people, for your brothers and sisters? Do you hope the best in all your situations? Do you hope for a wonderful reconciliation? Do you hope for forgiveness to always happen? Do you hope for healing to always happen? Do you hope for the best future in others, no matter how the present might seem to be? That's the quality of Jesus. Jesus always hopes the best for us, even though the present might not be very sweet, but he hopes, love hopes for the best always. The 18th question: do you give up on situations and on people? Do you endure till the end for the best outcome? It says, love endures all things. Love never gives up. It keeps on carrying the task. It keeps on going ahead with the mission. Love never quits. Love never gives up. Even as you have a relationship with your brother or your sister, do you endure till the end, or you just give up? This is just a hopeless situation. Nothing can be done. Nothing can be done for you. Or do you move always with the hope and endure till the end? Now, from verse 8 to 12 of this chapter, it says about love never fails. A person who practices these qualities of love, I can say very boldly, never. That person can never fail in his life. That person will always emerge as victorious. It says there, prophecies may fail, knowledge may fail, little understandings that we have today, it may fail, but love never fails. It's a sad thing that we always fight. We always have differences based on the little knowledge that we have today. The church is divided on the little knowledge that we have today. It says that we see dimly as in mirror, but then we will see everything perfectly. We all see dimly. None of our knowledge is perfect. None of our gifts are perfect. But we are always divided based on these little knowledges. The more excellent way is the way of love. Love never fails. All other things may fail. In verse 14, Paul finally says, only faith, hope, and love remains. But out of these, love is the greatest. Is love the driving force of our life? Is love the greatest motivation for us? Is love the supreme attribute that you desire in your life? Are you living by love, the more excellent way? May God bless us with these words. And let me add just one more thing, that it is easy to preach a message on love, but to practice love is a challenging thing. But let that be the benchmark of our life. Let that be the highest bar, the highest quality that we want to achieve. And may God help us as we pursue love. God bless you. Thank you.